Lifetime fluid? That's the biggest lie BMW has ever told. Skip this service and your transmission is guaranteed to fail early. That's exactly why in this video I'm draining the trans fluid, replacing the filter, and resealing the pan. I'm also going to rebuild the drive shaft, which wears out, causing vibrations, and I'm going to service the differential, because when I give this BMW away for free to one of you, I want it ready for another 200,000 miles on the road. Welcome to the Fix and Give series. My name is Alec and I teach BMW owners how to fix their own cars. And when I'm done with this one, I'll be selecting a lucky winner to give it away to, and I'm going to hand deliver it to you in person. We're currently restoring a 2002 BMW 325 Ci convertible that was gifted to me by my subscriber named Gerardo. Last episode, we wrapped up the last of the oil leaks and engine work, and now it's time to switch gears to the rest of the drivetrain. So sit back, relax, and let's get started. You always want to remove your fill plug first, because if you drain the transmission and can't get the fill plug out, you can't get fluid back in it. Plus, it's like shotgunning a beer. It lets it breathe more as the fluid is draining. On this ZF 5HP19, the fill plug is over here on the back left. These stubby Allen sockets are super helpful for it. That looks terrible. That looks really bad. Now we go to the drain plug. Fill plug's an 8mm, drain plug is a 6mm. Now we can put the drain plug back in loosely and start removing the pan. The bolts that hold the transmission pan up are T27s. No, it's stripped out. My socket started to twist. That's a bad Matco socket. Ruh-roh, I got a stuck bolt. I don't think I'm wrong on size. T30s don't fit anywhere else. Quite positive it's a T27. But now that it's stripped out and slightly oversized, let's see if we can hammer in a T30. Well, we're not off to a hot start. Maybe Grandpappy's hammer brings us good luck. Come on. Nope, that's stripping. All right, let's try the T27 again. Ah, there it goes. Shoot. All right, time to get creative. Dang, we're in a pickle quick, aren't we? I got a snap-on 25-piece screw extractor set. Maybe we can find something in here that'll bite. That's pretty decent, but pan's in the way. All right, we'll get it. We always do. No, I don't want to have to drill it, but I might have to. Didn't expect to hurdle so quick. This is a perfect example of how jobs don't always go your way right off the bat. Let's try to hammer on an 11mm 1/4-inch socket. Oh, we got it. Hammered on an 11mm socket and that did the job. Whew. All right, now we got to get the rest of these out. Nice. Okay. Let's hope the rest of these don't fight me like that one did. Boy, they're tight though. I don't like that. I'm gonna break them all loose by hand. Oh, God, it's so tight. Why are you so tight? To prevent future strippage, I'm gonna use an impact driver, turn it to the off position, and try longer ratchet, shorter extension for a little more leverage. It's gonna strip, dude. It's crazy. Maybe someone did the trans service before me and they just over torqued all the hardware. To prevent having to extract another one, let's go back to the impact driver. Whew. Now I'm gonna leave a bolt installed in the rear and 1 or 2 bolts installed in the front, and I'll show you how I like to drop these pans to minimize mess. Okay, so we got 2 bolts left in the front, 1 bolt left in the rear. Now the reason why I do this is these transmission pans hold a lot of fluid even if you drained it. And so when I peel it out the back here, and those bolts are still in the front, gonna wanna flop down and we can prevent making a big mess. Like this, and then back these bolts out a little bit. Like that. Looking good. Take our last bolt out all the way. Get all that fluid out of there. Put our pan off to the side and leave our bucket to catch all this oil. And this is your valve body and your solenoids and your transmission filter. Now while that transmission drains out, let's grab all these transmission pan bolts and get them in our new ultrasonic parts cleaner, thanks to Mr. John Lamson for hooking it up. Watch the magic happen. And while the hardware is cooking, we can get the big parts washer set up, pull out the tray, dump out the last little bit of fluid into my oil bucket. We're gonna let this thing soak in the parts washer. It's got all these little magnets on it, and these magnets hold the metallic material from your trans fluid so it doesn't continue recirculating. We also wanna get all this cosmoline off the backside. So we'll just let this thing marinate for a little while and then just get this pump circulating so we can get some bubbles. Get a little fluid movement in there. Now while that trans pan soaks, let's talk about the parts we're going to be installing. We have a genuine BMW transmission filter assembly. We also have a new fill plug and a new drain plug because the O-rings are integrated into the plugs. We also have a new gasket, and we have 6 quarts of ZF Lifeguard fluid number 5 for the ZF transmission. ZF fluid, ZF transmission. For the drive shaft rebuild, we have a Rhine center support bearing with the bracket. We also have a genuine BMW piece of butyl tape. It needs to be a specific thickness and a specific length, and it glues on top of the center support bearing, and it seals up against the unibody in the drive shaft tunnel. We also have a new nut for when we have to separate the drive shaft. We have a guide bushing in addition to a new flex disc and all new hardware, and we have 2 new nuts for the studs that secure the center support bearing up into the transmission tunnel. And last but not least, for the rear differential service, we have 2 liters of Liquimoly GL4/GL5. It's a 75 W90, and we have the fill and the drain plug for the differential. And again, it has O-rings integrated into the drain plug, so it's always a good idea to replace them. Now, the coolest thing about all these parts behind me is I only purchased 3 kits to do all of this work. A transmission service kit, a drive shaft rebuild kit, and a rear differential service kit. And I bought all 3 of these kits from today's sponsor, FCP Euro. Now, restoring a BMW and giving it away to one of you for completely free is not easy, and it's not cheap. And FCP Euro, throughout this entire series, has donated thousands upon thousands of dollars worth of parts to this car. They have been so incredibly supportive. They have been my biggest supporter this entire time. Now, if you've watched my previous episodes, you know my usual talking points as to why you should use FCP Euro for all of your European and BMW parts. They have the best online catalog that I've ever seen. They have a lifetime replacement guarantee. They have the best customer support. They have technical support with a hotline that you can call if you have an issue, and they are the masters of DIY resources. Their YouTube channel has over 400,000 subscribers, and they have over 1,700 videos, and all of those videos are tailored to teach you how to repair your own car, at the same time showing you the tools, the parts, and the kits that you can purchase to get it all done in one fell swoop. Now, I also just learned that they updated their parts catalog, and they're now covering parts all the way up to 2025 vehicles. And on top of that, they are increasing the size of their team on the West Coast so they can have more customer support representatives and more technical support representatives to make your life easier. A big thank you to FCP Euro for believing in me, believing in the channel, and believing in this series. Let's get this trans pan and hardware cleaned up, and let's get it reinstalled. Well, the hardware is done cooking. Look how clean that looks. Shout out John Lamson for the ultrasonic parts cleaner, dude. This thing works incredible. That looks like brand new hardware. Let's check on this trans pan. This thing's probably gonna need some scrubbing. It takes a while to get all this cosmoline off. Yeah, all that cosmoline's still on there. I mean, it's a protective coating. We don't have to remove it. This isn't oil and grease and grime. This is a protective layer that they spray from the factory called cosmoline. Honestly, the inside could use some love too. So I think we're just gonna have to either pressure wash or clean this thing up by hand. We need to pull all these magnets off and wipe them off and reinstall them as well. Guess we're hand scrubbing this thing. Also, check this out. This is a comparison of brand new ZF5 transmission fluid to what came out of the car. Lifetime fluid? Yeah, right. That thing is mud. It literally looks like mud. Can't even see light through it. All right, I got the pressure washer hooked up. Let's spray this pan down. While those magnets soak, let's take the wire wheel to this pan and make it look pretty. Now we got to pull the filter. Now I can usually do this job in about 2 hours, but I'm going slow today because I'm cleaning up the pan and pressure washing it and doing all these little details. 2 screws, T27s. Now, when I pulled this filter out, the O-ring didn't come off with it because it's stuck in the valve body up here. So anytime you pull a filter out, you need to make sure that O-ring comes out with it. I'll show you. There you go. When I don't have the drain pan down, I got cardboard underneath here. Now we got to do my least favorite part. Get all this gasket off of here. All right. Now we got to clean this gasket surface up. We're going to use a little bit of red Sotch Brite. Little brake cleaner on the Sotch Brite does wonders. Try it. There's a little burr right here from someone levering against the side of the transmission for something. And I'm afraid it's going to impede sealing of the trans pan, so I'm going to have to shave that down with something. I'm really taking my time with this thing. My editor knows that. Love you, buddy. See if this 400 grit can take it down. Perfect. All right, I gotta take some thumbnail photos and then we'll put the pan back on. All right, I gotta find a replacement transmission pan bolt because that other one's stripped out. All these others though are just looking so beautifully clean. That ultrasonic parts cleaner works so good. So we'll go in here for my M6 hardware. See if we can find a replacement. Probably just use one of these 10mm bolts. That's about as good as we're gonna get right there. All right, let's prep this pan. Clean shop rag, little brake cleaner. Give it one final scrub. Make sure we got all the cosmoline from grinding on this thing off of the gasket surface. And for some extra insurance, I'll be using some L-Ring Curel T2 gasket maker. I'm gonna use this on the pan surface and the transmission surface. I usually put this on my trans pans. Almost forgot, we gotta get the transmission filter kit in there. I'm gonna put a little Seal Glide here on the O-ring. There's a lot of Seal Glide. I'll be fine though. Okay, filter assembly going back in. Really wanna focus on getting that gasket sealed in. That's what's most important. This hardware, we're just gonna go good and tight. We will look up torque spec for the pan though. There's little notches on the valve body that this filter assembly fits into. I'm gonna put a thin layer of Curel T on the transmission too, just so it never leaks again. I'm not running these down tight, I'm just getting the threads started. I gotta put up that replacement 10mm bolt too. Now let's just give everything a real light snug, so I don't have to snug them all up with the torque wrench. Boy guys, having this lift is so nice. I've done this job many times with floor jacks and jack stands though, so if you gotta do a trans service on your car, don't be afraid to do it on jack stands. Okay, now there's varying information for torque specifications for this pan online. Some say 6 Newton meters, some say 10 Newton meters plus Loctite. I ain't doing Loctite. I never really put Loctite on anything. I've never seen transmission pan bolts back out or lose their torque. So I'm just gonna do 10. We're gonna do crisscross pattern. Like that, and then we're gonna let this sucker cure up overnight. Man, these T27s suck though. They strip so easy with how tight they were put on. Bolt wants to strip out at 10 Newton meters, dude. Just double checking. All right, transpan's torqued up. I'm gonna let this thing cure up overnight, and then tomorrow morning we'll do the initial fill, and I'll show you guys how to do a proper transmission fill with the engine running and everything. I'll see you then. All right, it is the next day. I am feeling very confident with this transmission pan gasket. I always love letting this gasket maker cure up overnight. I just always feel like I'm gonna get a better seal. But now it's time to do the initial fill and get this transmission topped back up. So we're gonna start with putting our drain plug back in, our brand new drain plug with new O-ring. And we'll start the initial fill and I'll show you guys how I like to do it. Good and tight. Now this fill procedure for this ZF 5HP19 transmission that I'm about to show you is how master technicians and my coworkers showed me how to do it at the BMW shop I worked at for 6 years. And I've never had any problems with filling transmissions this way. So I'm gonna show you a step-by-step process on how I like to do it. Now this transmission is empty for the most part. There's still some fluid in the torque converter. So this first part is the initial fill, so we can fire up the vehicle and get the transmission up to operating temperature. So all you have to do is pull the fill plug. You're gonna need a hand pump for your transmission fluid. Again, we're putting ZF Lifeguard number 5 in here, and pull the fill plug and fit our hose into the transmission. And now we're just gonna simply start pumping fluid. It's nice to have a catch pan underneath because once we're done with the initial fill, we're waiting for transmission fluid to dribble out of the fill port. Should take a few bottles to get the first initial fill. Bottle number 2. Bottle number 3. And bottle number 4. Now there's going to be a little bit of fluid left over in the bottles. If your pump doesn't reach the bottom of the bottle, and that's okay. We can consolidate it all into one bottle once we're done. All right. See, now we're starting to get a steady trickle out of that fill port. So we reached our initial fill number. So what we'll do is just give it one pump for good measure, pull our hose, and then thread our fill plug back in. You don't need to torque it to spec as long as you just get it threaded by hand, and I just sort of snug it with my fingers. That will be sufficient because we're gonna have to take the fill plug back out soon. Let's throw some cardboard and a rag down on the ground to catch any drips. And for the next step, we're gonna need to fire the vehicle up. If you're doing this at home with a floor jack and jack stands, you can keep it at whatever working height you have it at. This is just a little bit too high for me to work comfortably to get into the car and to turn it on. The most important thing is that you're doing the fill procedure with the vehicle flat. Now I had the airbox removed for some other projects, so I need to put the airbox back in because we're gonna have to turn the ignition on and fire this car up, and I need it to be able to run okay so I can get the transmission up to temperature. We're also gonna have to run the vehicle, so let's get the garage door opened up so we don't poison ourselves. I think if I go about there. All right, so for this next step, I'm gonna connect my ICOM Ethernet cable to my laptop and load up ISTA and get connected to the vehicle. You can also do this with a capable scan tool. And the only reason why we're connecting to the vehicle is so we can look at the transmission temperatures. So we know when the transmission is at operating temperature, and so we can finish our final fill procedure. I'm also going to test checking the temperature of the transmission with an infrared thermometer, because if you guys don't have a scan tool or ISTA or any of those capabilities, we'll see if the infrared thermometer matches ISTA. So you guys could buy one at Harbor Freight for like 15 bucks and do your transmission fill that way. I'll be curious to see if the temperatures match. Okay, next I'm gonna get ISTA connected. We're gonna do a complete identification here through operations, read out vehicle data, select our device. Okay, so we're connected to ISTA. Let's just check out fault memory real quick. Nothing important, nothing that we need to focus on right now. We're in good shape. Okay, so what we're going to do is, let's go to vehicle information. The EGS is the transmission. Go to call up ECU functions. Let's see, diagnosis scan, engine data, transmission functions, transmission oil temperature, read state. So it's showing 36 degrees Celsius. I believe this is correct. This should be the correct temperature. So what we're gonna do now is fire up the car and get this transmission temperature up to our range that we need to fill it at, and then we'll do our final fill. Okay, now that we have our transmission oil temperature data pulled up and reading live, which is probably inaccurate by the way, it's saying 36 degrees Celsius, which is 98 degrees Fahrenheit, and my shop is maybe 70 degrees, so I don't exactly trust it. We're still gonna let it warm up and get to the higher range, and we're looking for 30 degrees Celsius to 50 degrees Celsius. So I'll probably shoot for 50 to try to make sure the transmission is sufficiently warm because I don't trust that data right now. The next step to get the transmission up to temperature is we're gonna fire up the car. And then to get all that new fluid pulled into the transmission, we're gonna run through the gear selector. So with your foot on the brake, you're gonna go from park to reverse and hold that for 10 seconds. Neutral for 10 seconds. Drive for 10 seconds. Back to neutral. Reverse. And just for good measure, I'm gonna do it twice. Back to park. Neutral. Drive. Neutral, reverse, and back to park. I forgot to do the manual shift, so let's do that real quick too. Okay, now let's go back up in the air so I can get access. We're gonna need to shut the hood. That lifter tick will go away once it gets warm too. Engine's just been sitting for a few weeks. Okay, our current temperature is 48 degrees, but again, it was reading a little high, so I'm gonna wait till about 50 or a touch above. And I'm gonna take all the leftover fluid from all of these bottles that the pump didn't get, and I'm gonna add them all into one bottle. That way I don't waste all this fluid. Okay, so we have 3 full bottles for the final fill. I also have my new fill plug. I also have my stubby 8 mil for torquing that down. I have my ratchet accessible, so we're ready to go once we do the final fill, because we want to have access to our tools and our drain plug. Let's go stage our fluid down below. And we're officially at 51 degrees Celsius, 50 to 51. I have my infrared thermometer. Let's go down below, shoot the bottom of the trans pan and see what the temperature says, and then we do the final fill. Okay, ISTA is reading 52 degrees Celsius. Trans pan is reading 78 degrees Fahrenheit. We're looking for 86 to 122. Trans pan is only showing 26.7. It's warm to the touch, but it doesn't feel 98 degrees. Okay, now we're getting 34 degrees Celsius. At least up in this pocket. So I'd say that's good enough. I'm not in any rush. I think we have plenty of time for it to warm up even more. So let's start prepping our first bottle. Up in this little pocket, I feel like is gonna be the most accurate because it has more fluid surrounding it. I also think that transmission temperature sensor is reading incorrectly. So let's pull our fill plug and get started. I think we're up to temperature on the lower end. Should have no fluid coming out. Okay, let's get our hose fitted up. Let's start pumping. One liter down. It's not a bad idea to buy an extra liter of fluid when you're doing this as well. Sometimes you can run a little short, or you have to take all the leftovers out of all the bottles and make one in order to have enough fluid to get the job done. So it doesn't hurt to have some extra bottles on hand. I'd recommend it, because I had a spare bottle or 2 to start this job, and I think I'm using them. So I think the kit comes with 6. I'd buy 7 or 8 just to play it safe. You don't want to do all this work and then end up being short on fluid. And we're gonna fill it until we see a slight trickle out of the fill port, which should be in just a few more pumps. Almost there. Here it comes. I'm gonna give a couple extra pumps. Yeah, I would buy an extra bottle or 2, guys. Play it safe. Got some dirtier fluid coming out. And because I pumped a little extra, I'm gonna let this trickle out till it just becomes a little bit of a softer trickle. Maybe right about there. It's starting to slow down. Let's do that. And then take our new fill plug. Don't want to use the old one. Just check our trickle. Yeah, it's perfect. Perfect trickle right there. That way, if someone needs to check the fluid, they can pop the fill plug at operating temperature and see that trickle. Thread that fill plug back in and torque it down. Good and tight. And look at that. Temperature dropped because we put new fluid in. All right, take a can of brake cleaner and clean up our mess. And that is the final step on how you service this ZF 5HP19 transmission. Never listen to this sticker. Lifetime fluid is not real. No such vehicle ever has any sort of lifetime fluid in it. If you were to not service this transmission, you're going to have premature failure of the transmission. I would recommend every 50 to 75K if you can afford it and if you can do it. You'll have a very long-lasting transmission. Another interesting fact that I sort of figured out over the years and talking with other technicians is if you have never serviced your transmission and it starts having issues, sometimes servicing the transmission will be the death sentence. Sometimes you'll drain out all that old fluid with all that friction material that's embedded into that fluid and put fresh stuff in, and it will exacerbate and make your symptom even worse. So if your transmission is having symptoms or of premature failure, or it's slipping or anything like that, sometimes it's not a good idea to service the transmission. And you guys can let me know your thoughts on that in the comments down below. But we're not done. This video is not over. We have a lot more work to do. This exhaust is mighty hot, so we need to shut this car off and start letting this thing cool down, because next we're gonna have to pull this exhaust system. Quit looking at my butt. Now while we wait for the exhaust to cool down, let's knock out this rear differential service. Now in a past video, when I did the rear differential bushing, using the removal of the differential cover method, I told you guys that the E46 didn't have a differential drain plug, and I was mistaken. I don't know why I forgot. I don't know why I said that, but that's not true. We have a fill plug here on the diff cover, and we have a drain plug back here. Now, the fill plug and the drain plug takes a big 14 millimeter Allen like this. Now, if you don't have a 14 millimeter Allen, you could find a 14 millimeter head bolt, put 2 nuts on the back side and turn it into like a big stud and use it that way. It is worth investing in a 14 millimeter socket just for this service. My old shop foreman Todd, he had a big 14 millimeter Allen key, and I lopped a piece off of that. I don't think he knows it to this day, and I've held on to it. That way I can just fit it in there and then put a 14 millimeter socket over it with a 3/8 ratchet and break it loose that way. So that's what I'm gonna do now. Luckily, Todd doesn't watch my channel, but even if he did, we're good homies. He would understand. Thanks, Todd. Shout out Lobster Trap. Let's do the fill plug first, because similar to the transmission, if you drain the fluid and you can't get the fill plug out, you're not gonna be able to get fluid back in it, and it's gonna be undrivable. They're in there pretty dang tight. You really gotta wail on them. And fluid should technically trickle out, so it's good to have a drain pan underneath once you pop the fill plug. If fluid doesn't trickle out, or it's not up at the top, then it might be a little bit low. I bet you it's like right there though. Yeah, it's right there. And it looks really clean. Now, diff services are one of the easiest services that you can do as far as replacing a fluid. I mean, it's just 2 plugs, and you don't have to remove anything to get access. This one, you need a pan at the ready. Boy, how much better are these camera angles with this new lift, huh guys? I'm super excited. If you haven't seen the bend pack lift installation video, check it out. I'm also currently doing head gaskets on my brother's Tundra, so I got head gasket Toyota content coming soon too. Here we go. Ooh, that looks great. That is really nice diff fluid. This fluid barely even needed to be changed. But we're doing it anyways, because I'm giving this car away to you guys for free. Now, if you guys haven't caught a video yet with me talking about the giveaway form, there's a link in the description of this video, and it says BMW giveaway entry form. It's just a simple Google form. I don't want any of your money. You just got to give me some basic details: name, email address, phone number, city and state that you live in, so I know where I'm going when we do select the winner. And if you are the lucky winner, throw your name in there. Make sure you're subscribed to Day Off DIY. If you're not going to get the car. And tell your friends, tell your family, have them watch the video, have them subscribe to the channel. That's all you got to do, guys. All I want is a subscription, just so I can help get my channel, get my name, get my content out there, so we can help more people, teach more people how to service their BMWs. It's completely free. There is no catch. There's no nothing. Just subscribe to the channel, fill out the form, and you could win this car once it is fully restored. All right, that's pretty much drained enough. This fluid looks beautiful. What's interesting is the fill plug that came out of it is different than the fill plug that I have. The one that I have as a replacement has a sealing O-ring built into the plug. These ones have big aluminum crush washers. And speaking of crush washers, the sealing washer off the old drain plug is stuck to the differential. So anytime you're doing services like this, you always want to make sure that type of stuff isn't still on there. If you double stack crush washers, you're gonna have a leak. It's not gonna seal well. Also, the fill plug and the drain plug are the same. Oh yeah, shiny new hardware. Gotta love these kits from FCP Euro. They really cover everything. Just makes life easy. Okay, put our Allen back in and good and tight. This is a big ratchet, so I don't need to go crazy tight. And again, for differential fluid, we're using some Liquimoly GL4 GL5 75 W90. Liquimoly's good stuff. Hopefully this should have the easy squirt nipple on it. Yep, it does. Pull this guy out, stick her up in there, squeeze the bottle. I got about 75–80% out of that bottle. It's pretty hard to squeeze the last little bits if you don't have a downwards approach. So we're just gonna switch to the second bottle, make life easy. And then if we still need more, I have another bottle on hand that I had on my shelf. And you can also just take the leftovers and combine it into one bottle. All right, and similar to the transmission final fill and initial fill, we just want to trickle out of the rear differential. I'm gonna let this drain down just a little bit. That's a pretty decent light trickle right there. It doesn't have to be super accurate, guys. It can be off a little 1/8 of an inch. It's not gonna kill the differential. Fill plug's back in. Now we snug up our fill plug. Again, I'm just going good and tight. Okay, last but certainly not least, my favorite shop supply. Spray it down with a little brake cleaner. I just bought a 12-pack, so I am stocked up. Is that not the cutest dog you've ever seen? Is that not the cutest puppy dog you've ever seen? Hi, sweetheart. Catching some sun. Transmission, done. Differential service, done. Pop the top off this one. Let's see if we can get this one without marring it. That way we can save this fluid for next time. Nice, that worked perfect. And I'm to about right here. So in total, we only used a little bit over a liter, but you'll probably need 2 to get the job done. And just like saving the scraps of the trans fluid, now we have almost a full liter, 75-90 gear oil that we can keep on the shelf for next time. All right, the exhaust is cooled down. It is warm to the touch. So now we can start focusing on getting this thing dropped. Now, these nuts and studs are going to be your biggest challenge. And if you can see here, these nuts have just been replaced. That's because I filmed a video on how to replace the exhaust flange gaskets for another brand, for Autoline Pro. One of these studs was actually a little bit damaged once I pulled it off, so we might have to replace it today. I'm not sure. We'll see if we can clean up the threads while the exhaust system is down. Now what happens is these nuts can pretty much just bind to these studs, and when you remove it, it blows out the threads on either the nuts or the studs. It's a really good idea to replace these nuts anytime you drop the exhaust. Sometimes you have to replace the studs too. It just happens. Now, the solution to getting around this is to pre-soak them a day or 2 in advance with some PB Blaster, Tri-Flow, WD-40, whatever your favorite fluid is. And you might have to really hit these with a torch and get them smoking hot so you can get them removed. Looks like it's a 15 for the nuts that I replaced, so let's pull these off and start removing this exhaust system. Yeah, that's my problem stud right there. You can even hear it. Threads look, threads got a little wiped. I think we're gonna have to do that stud. I'll give you guys a close-up look once we get the exhaust fully down. Now this hardware is gonna fight you the most out of any hardware on this entire exhaust system. So I like to focus on those first, get the hard part out of the way. Then we'll just throw a nut on this little stud down here to keep it from sliding off while we work on the rest of the exhaust. Other things we need to remove is like this big bracket here. It has 2 little exhaust mounts that hold the exhaust up. You don't need to take these nuts off. We can just pull these 4 13mm head bolts. Other things we need to remove is like this big brace. Dang it, man, this caster wheel is breaking on me. I gotta tap it and thread it or warranty this dang creeper. All right, so 16, 16, 16, 16, and then little 13s that hold them up here. All right, electric ratchet. This is like a rear convertible top reinforcement bracket. Dang, this sucker's heavy. Gotta hold it up with my head. Okay. Dang, man. My caster wheel came off. It's all stripped and blown out. I gotta go repair this with a tap and die set and see if I can get this thing functioning again. Be right back. Might as well show you guys the process of fixing my tools. Get my Matco Deluxe tap and die set out. What happened is this chair has this caster on a stud and this little nut, and the stud and nut stripped out, and then this thing's slacking and it's catching against the rest of the creeper. It's driving me mad. Let's get my nut and bolt gauge out, try to figure out what size it is. M8 1.25. I highly recommend investing in a tap and die set. It can be so helpful sometimes. It can really save the day. Probably gonna be using this on the exhaust stud. Take our caster wheel. Most important thing is getting it straight. Shout out to my pops Rick for this beautiful bench vise that he refinished for me. Because I have to hold down here with a wrench to get the die on it, I can't get it all the way down. So if I take this vise and squeeze this outside collar to hold it, now I can get this die on, and then I can use an open end wrench like this, adjustable, and I can clean the threads up all the way to the base. Now we gotta fix the nut, if we can. Might as well just chuck this in the vise too. This is what happens when you buy cheap Chinese junk. It worked, but all the other adjustable back creeper chairs were like 200 bucks. This thing was like 60, but the wheel was starting to fall out and then it was rubbing on this piece and driving me crazy. So Benpack makes one. Well, I think they resell one, so I'm gonna reach out to them and buy a better chair. I need a good quality chair, something comfortable. Okay, hopefully she snugs up. My wrench is gonna get stuck in there though. So we'll hold this collar with some Knipex. Threads popped. Ah! Problem too is like I can't just throw a nut and bolt in it. It's like You know what I mean? Let's try no washer, and we'll try to capture as many threads as we can. Yep, I think I'm just gonna have to buy a new creeper. Maybe without a washer we can get some. Yeah, okay, that's tight enough. It might hit there, it might not. We'll see. Let's get back to work. Okay, creeper's fixed for now. Last step is 4 13mm nuts that hold both of these exhaust hanger brackets on back here. Now, when I pull these, this entire exhaust is gonna wanna hang down. We've removed all the other hardware, so I don't have enough room for like a pull jack. So I got a trash can here, and once I remove these, I'm gonna have it held on by that one nut up there at the flange. I'm gonna hang this down and rest it on top of this trash can. Dropping exhaust is usually a 2-man job, but we don't get that luxury in the Day Off DIY garage. But the good thing is, you know, we show you guys ways to do it if you're solo at your house or your shop or your driveway. Oh, she's heavy. Okay, trash can's got it. Now you guys can see everything. I'll come up here. It's okay to put a little stress on these studs and nuts. It's okay. Did it all the time at the old shop. Let's get that nut out of here. And now, get some safety glasses. Now we'll slide this off. Uh-oh, I got an idea. We'll find the balance point on this thing. I pulled the nut off the exhaust studs. This might get a little messy. Ah, got it. Yeah, yep, buddy. Yeah, we wanted to drop this thing all the way to just really get it out of our way so we can get access to the drive shaft. Now I gotta get this off the trash can. Ooh. Boy, this sucker's heavy, dude. Sage is getting excited. Okay, exhaust cap back is pulled down. Okay, now we get to remove this heat shield and get access to the drive shaft. And for the drive shaft, it's 4 10mm head screws, 2 back here by the rear differential. Safety glasses are recommended. There's a lot of rocks and pebbles and garbage that gets caught on this heat shield. Usually drops a lot of junk when you pull it. And then 2 more up here, right here. Yep, bunch of junk. There's our drive shaft, baby. Man, that center support bearing looks perfect. It looks perfect. We don't even need to do it, but we gotta do it. This flex disc needs doing, so we might as well drop it and do it. Okay, what's next? Let me give you guys an overview. So we got our cap back, our heat shield, our 4 coarse thread screws, and then looking up here, we have our flex disc, also known as a Giubo, G-I-U-B-O, and this is what takes the power from the transmission and transfers it into the drive shaft. These are known to crack and tear and cause driveline vibrations, all that type of stuff. There's also some transmission mounts up here. These don't look too bad. They're a little squatted out, but I don't see any tears or any micro cracking on them. They do look like they have a little bit of fluid saturation on it. So working back, this is a 2-piece drive shaft, transmission, output, flex disc, first piece, U-joint, and then your center support bearing. Center support bearing bolts up to the drive shaft tunnel with these 2 13mm head nuts, and center support bearing is sandwiched up and sort of glued in there with that butyl tape strip that I showed you while we had all the parts out. And then this is that nut that sort of attaches the 2 pieces of the drive shaft, and then it's male threads on here, and then the drive shaft runs back. Then we have another U-joint with some E-torque bolts that bolt the drive shaft to the rear differential, to the input. Now I need to get up here and put the transmission in neutral and release the parking brake so I can spin the drive shaft. Hi Sage, what's up puppy? Hello. It's okay, come here, come here. Oh, hello, hello. Your paws are wet. Neutral, parking brake, key off. Hey, quit looking at my butt. Just kidding. What's up, Sage? What are you doing? You got some wood? You got a stick? Meow. Wait, here she comes. Meow. What's up? Oh, she's the goofiest dog. You are so goofy. All right, let's get back to work. Okay, some words of wisdom on BMW drive shafts. These drive shafts do not like to be disturbed, and in a perfect world, they should be sent to a drive shaft shop and be balanced, especially after you do a center support bearing or if you're going in to do a flex disc. Now, if you watched my very first E46 series, the $500 to daily driver, the one we sold to Mr. Daniel Watts out of El Paso, Texas, I did the center support bearing, flex disc, transmission mounts. Then I developed a drive shaft vibration under heavy load between like 15 and 30 miles an hour. I don't have a drive shaft shop near me, so I couldn't send it out to get balanced. And what fixed it for me was replacing the CV joint / yoke here in the rear end. Now this one has a U-joint style. And so this one should be a little bit better. Hopefully it doesn't give me any issues. We're definitely not gonna be replacing the U-joints. But reason why I say that is, one, if you are doing this repair yourself and you live in a larger area, look up a driveline shop and get your drive shaft balanced after you do the center support bearing. If you're not going to, if you don't have that resource, mark the exact position of that yoke to the differential with a paint marker like I'm gonna do, so it goes back in the same position that it came out. Yeah, when I was doing Daniel's car and trying to get it ready for sale, boy, I had the drive shaft in and out of that car 3 times, and I don't want you guys to have to go through what I went through. So just mark the position of the U-joint or the yoke and make sure you put it back on the input for the differential in the same location. I'm just gonna take a paint marker here and mark there, and then mark the input, so I know when I put this drive shaft back in, that bolt goes into that threaded portion, and it'll just take a little bit of the guesswork out of it. I really wish I had a driveline shop near me to balance drive shafts, but I don't. Now that we talked about that, I'm gonna start on these E-Torques back here first. They're an E12 or an E14. Having an impact gun is really helpful because these suckers are tight, so let's do that next. For these, I'm gonna use a 1/2" pneumatic impact gun with a 1/2" extension down to a 1/2" to 3/8 adapter onto an E12 wobble socket, 3/8. Fit that on there like that, and I'll just blast them out. If you don't have an impact gun, I recommend you invest in one. And if you're gonna just be doing this with a ratchet, you can take a pry bar or a big chonky flathead screwdriver and wedge it in here between the U-joint, or you could hold the wheel to prevent the differential from spinning. Okay, 4 bolts are out. Now for the flex disc side, I'm going to again use an impact gun. It is a 18mm head bolt and an 18mm head nut on the backside. If you sneak a wrench up here behind the transmission cross member, you can capture the nut. And what I do is I just spin it and rotate it, get that nut right there on the bottom side, capture a little bit with the wrench, just like that. Try to hold it, rip this out. I think we're gonna need a wobble. Now there are 6 bolts. 3 of them hold drive shaft to flex disc. The other 3 hold flex disc to transmission. So you don't have to pull all 6 out. You can actually just pull the ones that mount the flex disc to the trans, and then we can do the flex disc once the drive shaft is out of the car. We still have the center support bearing holding the entire drive shaft up. So even with these removed, it's not gonna fall down on you. But I do need to go get a U-joint, a wobble, so I can get that on there. And just so you know, this is a Pittsburgh 1/2" impact socket and a Pittsburgh 1/2" wobble adapter. And I have beat the crap out of these things over the years and they've never broke. And I even use it on the impact all the time for stuff like this. So don't be afraid to use Harbor Freight stuff with impact guns. I've had good luck. Boy, the camera angles and lighting with this new lift are just so much better. I bet my editor agrees too. All right, last thing holding this drive shaft in is the center support bearing. Again, 2 13mm nuts attached to these studs coming out of the unibody. Let's just throw that back on just in case. Now, this center support bearing is held up by that butyl tape we talked about, so we gotta release that butyl tape a little bit. And once we get that butyl tape released, we might have to take a pry bar to that rear U-joint. This front part should fall right off, but let me get you guys out of the way because it's about to get physical. It's held up because that yoke hasn't disconnected back there, but we should be able to rotate that front end out. Yeah, drive shaft is held up by that rear yoke. It's just glued into that differential, so I gotta go get a pry bar and release that. This'll hang just fine for a second. There she goes. Ah, there we go. Yeah, drive shaft is released. All right, drive shaft is out, guys. I'm gonna take a little break because I'm about to cook up some ribeyes and have some local fresh bread, and then we'll rebuild this drive shaft. I think we might be able to wrap things up tonight. We might have to wait till tomorrow because I got a men's group I'm going to this evening, but I'll see you guys post ribeye. All right, let me show you guys what's on the menu. We got some Mad Hatter and shishito peppers out of the garden and some beautiful ribeyes from the butcher. Can't complain. Next day, boy, it has been one heck of a morning, let me tell you. First of all, my pastor from church, Justin, he dropped off his Toyota Highlander this morning at 9:45. I'm doing front wheel bearings and front brakes on that thing. Then I get a phone call from my brother. He's currently driving my E90 335i because we currently have the cylinder heads torn off on his 2002 Tundra I-Force V8. Head gaskets and valve job. So I had to take my E46, go drive down to where the E90 broke down, bring a scan tool, diagnose it. Water pump gave out, so had to get the tow hook set up. It's not drivable. There's no way we can drive it back to my house without it overheating. So we got all that set up, and then I gave my brother my truck. He's gonna arrange a tow for me to get the E90 back to my house later. And now finally, we can get back to business. Start working on the giveaway car again. So last night where we left off, we just got the drive shaft pulled out. Let's get it up on the workbench, start doing center support bearing and flex disc. So main reasons as to why you would service the center support bearing is the bearing spins freely right inside this rubber bushing type deal. This rubber bushing can tear and it'll cause the drive shaft to not spin evenly and it'll bounce, causing driveline vibrations. So this is a super common failure point on E-chassis BMWs, especially E46, E39s, E65s. The flex disc fails really frequently, more frequently than others. Also, another reason why we're doing this flex disc, you can see some micro cracking in here on the joints. You can see some micro cracking here. Another interesting little tidbit of information here, if you're ever doing a flex disc, these arrows right here point to the metal bracket. So this arrow points to the bracket for the drive shaft. This arrow points to the bracket for the transmission output. Reason why this is very important, the power transfer between transmission and drive shaft is going to go through this meaty portion. If you were to not follow these arrows and align it to where transmission's coming in here and it's going to drive shaft here, you're gonna be putting all that force into this thin part, which you do not wanna set it up that way. So you always wanna make sure the arrows are pointing towards the bracket that you're mounting it to. If you run it through here, you're gonna have crazy premature failure. So what we need to do is we need to bust this nut loose and we need to separate this rear end of the drive shaft off, and then we have to basically hammer and get this center support bearing off. Then we have to press on the new bearing in the correct orientation. But this drive shaft can move forward and backwards. You can adjust the distance, so we need to make a really nice measurement here and really notate at what length we have the drive shaft removed, so it'll be the same length when we put it back in. Also, we need to make sure that this drive shaft is going back in the same position as it came out. So we're gonna need to mark some of these teeth and make some reference marks, so we know when we slide these splines back together, we have it in the same exact position, because again, I don't have a driveline shop that can balance this thing for me. So we need to try to do our absolute best to get it back in the same position that we took it out at. First thing I'm gonna do is get this drive shaft set up on the bench and get this rear U-joint fixed into the bench vise, so I have a good solid foundation to work off. So I can keep this thing from spinning while I try to bust that nut loose and separate the two pieces. Don't want to go crazy hard, don't want to mar any of the metal, just keep it secure. Now I'm not exactly sure about where my references are going to be yet, so I'm just going to take a Sharpie and mark these splines, because this guide nut slips down on these splines and then mates this piece of the drive shaft to this back half. And so if these splines are slipped further in, the drive shaft's going to be shorter. If it's farther out, it's going to be longer. I've had to remove drive shafts multiple times because it wouldn't fit during reinstallation. It's because I didn't have the position of these splines correct. So really want to try to make sure that we'll put it back in same distance. Now this nut is larger than the biggest size wrench that I have, so we're going to use my monster Knipex Cobras. I knew I'd have a use for these. Aren't these the biggest pliers you've ever seen? Okay, so we'll unthread this, and then we need to make some reference marks as to where the drive shaft mates up on the splines. So there, the bushing slipped out. And this is where the splines mate into each other. So I think if we make a paint mark here where the rear drive shaft slips into the front because it's held together with this nut, this will be a good reference. So let's draw a Sharpie line across again, so we have another reference of how deep this thing needs to go back in. And I'm going to be very redundant with the references that I'm putting on this thing, because really want to make sure everything goes back same position. Let's take a paint pen, and then what I'll do is just mark a spline, and then try to take a straight edge like that. I think we should be able to get it from there. Yeah. Now if I remember correctly, we should be able to pull that drive shaft out Now we have the two pieces separated. That's all dialed in, bitchin'. Now we need to work on this piece up here. I'm afraid that I'm going to lose my paint marker when I slide this nut off. So let's trace this spline back to here, down on the front. So if when I slide this nut and bushing off, if it does wipe off my mark, I know where to go off here. Okay, it sort of ran my paint all the way down. And we have our really good reference marks there, so that's super good. I'm happy with that. Then to get this center support bearing off, looks like we have a snap ring in here. Let's work on that next. Got my snap-on snap ring pliers set. Now, it's nice having snap rings too, because we're gonna have to hammer and pull this center support bearing off. And when we reinstall it, we know as long as we have it far enough back to get that snap ring to seal, then we'll be fully seated. Now we gotta figure out how to get this center support bearing off, because it gets stuck on there pretty dang good. Let's rotate this bench vise. Okay, and then let's take this. Let's drop that U-joint in there, again being fragile with it. Let's go this way so I have a better angle of attack. That should hold it in a nice fixed position. And I think I'm gonna try to use a puller today. And maybe we can capture the outside here and pull it out and capture that little nipple on top. Okay, and then for this next part, I think I'm gonna try to use like a 2 or 3 jaw puller, grab purchase points on the outside, put the bolt down here and see if we can get it off that way. We'll try out just this Harbor Freight 2-jaw puller. I think this will work if we use this big one. Okay, looks pretty decent. Chances are it'll probably separate the bushing from the bearing inside, but if so, then we'll have some more room to get it out. But let's see how this works. Yeah, it's just separating. That's okay. So there's our outer piece. Now I think we should be able to have enough reach, ideally, to get down there. Grab this bearing. Our indicator on our spline's still there. Oh, it wants to spin. No, that gun's about maxed out. I could try to hit it with the impact, the big 1/2 inch. This is probably one of the more challenging parts of this entire video. It's doing this drive shaft correctly. Now I'm gonna spend a bunch of time with some Sotch Brite, really cleaning up where this bearing seats down on the drive shaft. Maybe taking off just a tiny little bit of stuff, you know? That way the installation goes smoother, because that was a really tight fit to get that bearing off. It has quite a tight tolerance here. I've done this once before at the home garage, and I basically just had to use a hammer and a punch and knock that bearing back down into its spot. Now another thing to consider too is this outside rubber portion came off this way. This is not a symmetrical center support bearing. There is one way that it goes on, one way that it comes off. If I remember correctly, this extension goes towards flex disc. I'm gonna double check my video right now and confirm. Yep, so I double checked it. We have the flex disc down here at the bottom of the drive shaft, so that means this piece here is going to go down. So it doesn't matter which way it goes because it spins freely. And so I'm gonna spend just a second more cleaning up this little top piece right there, and we'll go for the reinstallation. I don't wanna hit it with sandpaper and take like too much meat off, but we're gonna have to really whack this thing with a hammer to get it down into position. Okay, let's take a little touch of Seal Glide, and you don't want too much to get in the way of the tolerance, but let's just put a nice thin coat. Try to help assist that center support bearing down into position. Same thing on the inside here. Just a super, super light schmear. This end goes towards flex disc. Drop it down. Now for this next part, let me show you. I'm gonna have to hammer this center support bearing down because I don't have specialty tools for it. So I'm gonna use a punch, but I'm only going to capture the inside race. That won't put any stress on the actual bearing itself, right? I'm only going to hit this inside silver piece, because that's what makes contact to the drive shaft. That's what has the tight tolerance. With that being said, let's try to get this thing seated. We got a long ways to go, folks. No, I think that's the snap ring groove. So I think we're good. I think I got it on all the way. Now it could have also gotten damaged from the removal, but this bearing was also crunchy. You can hear it. Okay, let's get the tail end of this drive shaft put back into the bench vise. You want to prevent this thing from spinning while we put this nut back on. Something like that. Now we need to install our new drive shaft nut, like so. And now we mark up that paint pen mark, just like that. Slide her into our Sharpie mark, and nut goes on. Now I can't get a torque spec on this because I can't put a torque wrench on here, but we're just gonna snug it up. Last time I did this, I used a pipe wrench. And I also have a Sharpie mark on the back side of where the stopping point of the nut needs to be. I'm pretty happy with that. Now the distance of this actual nut is slightly different because the bushing is a little bit longer in this one than it is in this old one. They must be different manufacturers. So instead of going crazy overkill so I can't feel the torque that I'm applying, let's throw this pipe wrench on here. And you know, guys, I don't do things perfect, but I make do with the tools that I have. And I think that is representative of a lot of the situations that you guys are in too. You know, basic hand tools, basic sockets, Harbor Freight puller sets. Last time without a bench vise, I was just putting like a screwdriver in this U-joint and I wasn't too happy with that. All right, I'm pretty happy with that torque. I don't want to go too tight. I don't want to beat this nut up too much. I'm pretty happy with that. We're looking good. Let's switch gears to this flex disc. I'll try to follow torque specs on this one. So let's just get this flex disc off. 18 millimeter nuts, 18 millimeter bolts. All right, old flex disc, new flex disc. Now, this kit came with this little guide bushing. I've actually never replaced these. I'd like to. This one is a little bit wider, so it might be a nice idea to replace it. However, I don't really know how to get this thing out. I don't exactly have the right tools. I don't have like a hook that can get in there with my slide hammer and pop it out. I'd be able to install the new one in. I'm a little hesitant to take it on right now because I just don't know if I can do it right, but I'm gonna poke around the shop and see if I have any tools to do that. Because the drive shaft kit does come with this guide bushing, I think we should do it just to sort of set an example on how to do it. However, I might be opening up a can of worms. I don't know. I'm gonna have to custom modify a tool in order to even get it out. I might be able to just twist it with some pliers. I doubt that though. It's probably what I'll try first. Then I have this attachment for my slide hammer, but it's too large. So what I could do is shave down the sides, shave down the top, and make it small enough to fit into there, and then capture the backside and use the slide hammer to knock it out. For the sake of using every single part in the entire kit, including the drive shaft rebuild kit, I think I'll try to do it. I just really hope it doesn't backfire. For my first attempt, I'm gonna try to get a bite on it with these Knipex vice grips. Maybe we can just get a purchase and twist it out, if we're lucky. Yeah, it's spinning. That's a good sign. I also did make a reference on how far it was sticking out, and so I have that too. Starting to squish it a little bit, but we're getting it. We did spin the whole thing. I think before we do any further damage, I'm gonna have to modify this slide hammer attachment, fit it in. I'm gonna shave the sides down like crazy. So we're gonna use the old Hobart coffee grinder my dad gave me. And what we'll do is we'll pull this wheel off over here and we'll put on our grinding wheel and just start shaving. Snug that up, put on some real gloves because this sucker is gonna get hot. It's got a little wobble in it, but. Woo boy, this is gonna take a long time. I made some good progress with the grinder attachment, but I'm gonna go with something a little more coarse and see if the die grinder will take material off faster with this real coarse grit sandpaper disc. Ooh, let's try a flapper disc. Well, I forgot to record, but I ran it on the grinder a bunch and then swipped over to the flap disc on the die grinder, and I took a bunch of meat out, and now I'm able to get it inside and capture through on the back, but I wanna take a little bit more meat back here so we can really get this blade down onto the metal, because if we're just grabbing rubber, it's probably not gonna come out. So a little bit more meat right back here, but the width is okay. We just need to smooth out this top. Wanted to open up the depth down here, so I think that might be good. I think we can get it now. Now this hook piece that I modified came with this Matic 9-way 5-pound slide hammer. I bought this from Harbor Freight and it was like less than $100, so I'm not buying any specialty tools. I'm just trying to use what's on hand. I bought this to do wheel bearings to get hubs off, wheel hubs. So close this up, this out of the way. Now we're gonna take our attachment, thread it onto our slide hammer. Wish me luck, Sage. I think it'll go. But boy, modifying stuff and getting the job done with what you have on hand, if you can accomplish the mission, you know, it's a very satisfying thing, and it just makes you feel so much more confident for future jobs when you might not have done it before. And let's get this thing out, huh? She's right there. Boom, baby. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about, guys. You can do this too. You can do this too. I've never done a guide bushing before, but we're gonna do it together for the first time. I got some sparks on the camera lens. Sick! We did it, guys. We did it. Let's go. All right, let's just polish up the inside. Okay, now we need to put the new guide bushing in. This is the back side. That's the front side. I think what we'll do is just a touch of silicone on there. Let's test fit it. Feels a little tight, but we'll see. Just gonna take my big rubber sledge. And then gonna measure out to the mark that I made. And that black line was directly on the chamfer, so we got one more smash. And that is right on the money. While we're here and while we're in the bench vise, let's put this on and then we'll torque it to spec when we put the drive shaft back in the car. Adapt and overcome, dude. Tell you what, I don't know how to do all these jobs all the time, but I'm not afraid to learn. And if I make mistakes, if I figure out how to do it, I share it with you guys, even if I screw up. Okay, so we're gonna go arrow to the drive shaft, and the bolts were on this side. Nuts are always on the back side. Okay, I'm gonna look up torque specs. For 8.8 grade bolts, the torque spec is 48 Newton meters. For the 10.9 grade bolts, torque spec is 60 Newton meters. So I got my 1/2 inch torque wrench set up, throw a wrench on the back, hit. Okay, drive shaft is almost done. Time for reinstallation. Now before I continue with the drive shaft, I gotta do some shop reorganization. I got exhaust hanger nuts there, freaking support, heat shield, exhaust, grinder discs, pad insert for the slide hammer, extension cord, all types of tools out, slide hammer, drive shaft, air hose, all this junk out here. It's getting messy. Hardware, electric ratchet, time to tidy up. They just don't make music like they used to. My girl. All right, before we put this drive shaft up, we gotta get all this old butyl tape out of the tunnel because we're putting on new butyl tape. And this will impede the center support bearing's ability to seal up into the tunnel. All right, I think that's good enough. I think I'm going to pre-apply it to the tunnel as opposed to the center support bearing. Maybe this will bite me in the butt, I don't know, but I don't want the center support bearing getting glued to the sides. Oh, can I take it off? I'd like to adjust it a touch. Uh-oh. It's stretching out on me. It's the little things, guys. It's the little things that makes it all go back together. All right, it's time to start putting this thing back together. Let's get our drive shaft and our hardware and do this thing. Now, again, we're gonna use our paint mark on this one and make sure we're lined up correctly on this rear yoke. The center support bearing nuts we're gonna do last. We're gonna torque the transmission and torque the differential and allow the drive shaft to center and find the center point. Then we will put the center support bearing up. But if I remember correctly, the first part that we need to do is transmission, because we have this little pin coming off the trans, and that needs to go into the guide bushing. That guide bushing that we installed is a little tighter too, so it's just fighting me a little bit. Come on, let's try a yoke first. Okay, now once it's up, put our center support bearing nuts on, but we're gonna put them loose. This center support bearing bracket is slotted, which is exactly why I said you have to get the rest of the drive shaft tight before you touch the center support bearing nuts. So we wanna just leave that loose. The differential is nice and seated, so let's make some small adjustments and get it lined up with our paint mark, and we'll throw some hardware in there. See there, we got our paint mark to paint mark. All right, let's run these down and get them torqued. Okay, I'm seeing 61 feet-pounds for these M10 Torx bolts.
Now I can go up and I can fasten the parking brake. I can try to hold the wheels. I think I can do this. Ah, I can't hold it. I'm gonna hurt my shoulder. Let's just thread them in all the way, and then I'll go up and fasten the parking brake, do 2 at a time, and then release it, spin it, fasten it again, and do 2. I've stuck like a screwdriver into this U-joint before, or gone here to the CV axles, but let's do it the right way because I don't want to do any damage to the U-joint. Okay, let's go there. Go set the parking brake. 61 is a good amount of force. Yeah, it's just a little gummied from my first attempt. Okay, differential is torqued. Let's keep going, gang. I got dinner reservations at 5:30. I'm going to a omakase sushi dinner to send one of my friends off on an international trip. So I got a good 45 minutes before I got to get showered up and get cleaned up. The trans is in neutral, but the parking brake's set, so I should be able to spin that flange there. And again, arrow to bracket, It's lined up. Sneak that nut up there with my fingies. Oh man, we gotta do the trans mounts too. All right, I got access to 1. The transmission is still in neutral, but the parking brake is set. So once this bolt is tight, I won't be able to spin it without releasing the parking brake, but I can show you guys another little trick. Let's capture that nut, 18 mil. Okay, now that the threads are ran down, let's torque it. Okay, parking brake is disengaged and I put the shifter back in park. I'm gonna show you guys a little trick. If you take a 13mm wrench, bust this nut loose on this shifter assembly. Right now it's in park. That's reverse. That's neutral. Now we can spin this by hand. Now I don't have to go back up. Okay, spin this, get access to our last one. Now, go back up here, shift it back into park. Ah, you like that? Pretty tricky. Don't forget to tighten that nut back up though and put it back in the right position. There we go. Back to neutral, spin it, back to park, back to neutral, back to park. A little tech hack for you there. Okay, flex disc is installed. And we started in park. So now we have all these tight. Snug our shifter nut back up. Okay, if you loosen this, don't forget to tighten it. Okay, now I need to look up the torque spec for the center support bearing. And now that both ends are tight, it will suck up into the position it needs to go to. Come on, buddy. Please. I gotta get this thing warranted so bad. I've needed to warranty it for years. I'm gonna pop this and pull it down, put it back up. See right now the studs want to be closer to the front, and that's okay. Just let it go where it naturally wants to go. Come on, torque wrench, work for me. I'm gonna be so happy if this drive shaft doesn't have any vibrations, because I'm gonna be honest with you guys, it's a little bit of a risk to rebuild these and to not balance them. But I'm gonna be so happy. Nice. All right, we got it. Now you want to torque this center support bearing to spec because I had somebody snap these studs off before, and these studs are like welded into the unibody, and that is big trouble. So drive shaft is officially in, folks. Let's keep cranking away before I got to go to dinner, and let's get this heat shield put back up. Next, we got to take a look at this exhaust flange stud, because I'm either gonna have to hammer it out and replace it, or hopefully we can tap and die it. So let's work on that next. As you can see right here, those threads got boogered up and the nuts that go on are ovaled. And so they're kind of one-time use. If you strip them out, then you can't really tap them. So let's run a die on the stud and hopefully I have a spare exhaust flange nut. Judging off the nuts, I think it's a 9 by 1.25. So let's put it on a healthy one just to check. I don't think I have any spare exhaust flange nuts, so I'm gonna have to try to repair it. Maybe a 10 by 1.25? Yeah, I guess it's a 10 by 1.25. See how this works on a healthy thread. Yeah, the threads are just so crummy, man. They almost all need exhaust studs, but the exhaust should never have to come off if we do this. Let's try this again. If you're dropping the exhaust, it's also a good time to change the exhaust flange gaskets. They don't wear out very fast, but it doesn't hurt. All right, I'm gonna try to tap the nuts, even though they're ovaled. Might as well give it a try, at least the one bad one, because this might have cleaned up enough to capture a nut. Okay, all right, I got like 20 more minutes. Let's take this fouled out nut, 10 1.5. Yeah. Man, I love having a good tap and die set, let me tell you. Yeah, that'll be fine. We'll make it work. Look at them threads. That looks perfect. But it's kind of hard to see, but it's a little oval. It's a little squished. Okay, I got just enough time to do the trans mount. So let's get this heat shield back down because it's kind of in my way. Hey! Now these are from last episode because I bought an engine mount and a trans mount kit. But since we were doing the oil pan and all that stuff up there, it didn't make sense for me to do it last video. It makes sense for me to do it this video. So we got both of our trans mounts. And I got nuts for the bottom and nuts for the top. Now, when you're doing the drive shaft, it kind of helps if you drop the transmission crossmember. Just don't snug up the center support bearing until the transmission crossmember is fully bolted back up again, because it's slotted similar to the center support bearing. So what we're gonna do, first I'm gonna bust the nut loose that's on top. Okay, take these nuts off. Now, when we drop this trans crossmember, not everything's gonna fall down. It's gonna hang on the engine mount, so you'll be okay. I'll show you. See, it falls down like that. And now you got the crossmember and the trans mounts. Now, if you see here, we have a nipple there and a nipple there. That fits into the gap there and the gap there. And then if you look here, we have a little nipple that goes into the trans mount, little nipple that goes into the trans mount. So come down here, hit these nuts, trans mount, nut, other trans mount, new hardware, trans mount, fit it into that notch like that. New nut on the bottom, new mount, new nut. Super easy repair. You can, I think you might be able to sneak them out with the exhaust still on. I'm not positive, I don't remember. We're just going good and tight. Okay, then take this sucker, slide it back up into place like that. Grab your new nuts with the collar on them. Probably should have done new trans mounts before I fastened the center support bearing, but that's okay. You just want to make sure these trans mounts are fully shifted forward too, so they're fully seated forward. Make sure our nipple's there. Snug it down. Boom! How easy was that, guys? How easy was that? Super easy, right? And I usually just grab a bolt like this, grab the trans, push it up, get one started. Once all four are started, run them up. Boom, fold this back. Trans mounts are done, baby. All right, I gotta go get cleaned up for this dinner date, but I'll see you guys in the morning. We're gonna finish this exhaust and take this sucker on a road test. Shoo! Next day, time to get back to work. Drive shaft is secured and torqued. Transmission mounts are up and torqued. Heat shield next. We cleaned up the threads on the exhaust flange. Heat shield, then exhaust, let's go. So it was a good idea too to make sure that you didn't bend the heat shield and that it's not touching the drive shaft. If you really were to mutilate this thing and put a big bow up into it, it could rub on the drive shaft. All right, putting this exhaust up with one person is gonna be a challenge. I'm gonna try to get the flange up there on the studs, get it started, lift, maybe put a nut on it, lift the tail end up, try to position it onto the trash can, and then just try to lift it up into place and get some hardware started in the rear. If that doesn't work, then I'm gonna drop the height of the lift down, try to do it that way. But let's try, we'll see. Good thing I skipped the gym this morning. That didn't work, I almost had it. Maybe I can floor jack it. Get it up in the front, get it started. Put a floor jack in the rear. I gotta get this thing off this trash can now. It's so heavy. Ah! I just gotta lean this trash can down. Ah! Okay, I got it up on the studs a little bit. I can at least get one nut on there to hold it. Okay, now we'll get this thing onto the floor jack. Ideally, on top of this block of wood, if it'll stay. And then this will give us enough height, I think, to get this exhaust. I do the flange and these rear hardware, and then all the rest just go in easy. Boom. Yeah. Love it. Got it. Yeah, buddy. Lightweight, baby! Okay, before I fasten the rest of the exhaust up, let's tighten this flange so we can suck everything forward. Then we go from there. Tell you what, this trans pan is so dry. Looks great. Ah, nice. Cross member. Ah, exhaust is done. Boy, that was some work putting that exhaust and cross member back up. I think it's time for a road test. I got one more thing I want to do first. Let me show you. Okay, car's back down on the ground. I'm going to reconnect into ISTA. I got ignition on. All right, we're reconnected. Before we do anything else, let's just look at fault memory real quick. Mass airflow, I had that unplugged for some other content I was making. Belt tensioner, window stuff. We still got some more faults to clear out in here and to work through. Misfires 1.5, pressure sensors for the DSC. Surprised we don't have anything for the convertible top. But anyways, that's for next video. Let's delete faults, get a nice clean slate. Okay, switch off ignition. Switch on ignition. All right, next where I think I go is vehicle management, service functions, powertrain, transmission control. Normally I go in and reset adaptations for the transmission, but it doesn't have it here under transmission control. So I did plug back into ISTA, turned on the ignition, and then I cleared out fault memories on ISTA. What I was going to do is go into the EGS or go into the service functions for the transmission and then reset the transmission adaptations. But I'm not seeing the service function for it in there. I have done it on other E46s, I think. Maybe newer E46s that had it. I know I've done it on E60s and E90s and other vehicles like that. So you might be able to do it with a comprehensive scan tool. You might be able to do it on newer BMWs, but we'll be just fine. All we did was service the transmission. I think it's going to drive great. One thing I am going to do though, because we never did it after all the intake work, is let's go into DME. Let's reset adaptations. ABL, that's test plan. Reset all adaptations. Adaptations were reset. Switch ignition to lock position 0, wait 20 seconds. Continue, turn to position 2, which is ignition on, 2, continue, and test module. Done! So what do we have for faults, hard faults? Anti-trap protection for front driver, front passenger, no response passenger mirror and driver mirror. Spray nozzle left and right, and no communication with radio. So it has a aftermarket radio in it, but these are all left and right general module issues. So that's gonna have to be for a future video, folks. But we got some diagnosing to do. Close it out, and we are done with this stuff. Let's check the coolant real quick. That's just about perfect. Just take a peek at the oil. That is perfect. Brake fluid's good, power steering, beautiful, washer's good, we're good. Let's disconnect from ISTA. Let's fire this puppy up. Secondary air pump's doing its job. This thing is idling perfect. Show the air intake back on there. Get it some nice cold air for the road test. All right, let's go drive this thing and get some lunch. Your boy needs some food. Sage, load up. You can sit in the front or the back, whatever you prefer. We're gonna test out a new camera angle for you guys today. Let me know in the comments if you guys like the new road test angle. Sage, you can come up here. You wanna sit there, everybody be able to see you. They'll be happy. I am praying that this drive shaft does not have vibrations for me rebuilding it, because they are sensitive. And like I said in the video, guys, they like to be rebalanced after you do any work on them. So if you do live in an area with a drive shaft shop, I would highly recommend getting your drive shaft balanced. She wants to go into footwheel. So we'll do a big highway pull. I really gotta replace tires on this thing because there's a little bubble on the front left tire, and it's looking pretty rough. I'm scared that it might fail on me while driving. Now normally I would go get some tacos, but it's Saturday. The poke truck is up the street, so we're gonna see if they're sold out or if they still got some poke left. Yeah, go ahead. Go back there. She's driving really good right now. Shifting smooth so far. Let's go rip a couple miles on the highway, then get some poke. Engine's up to operating temp. Let's go. 70 miles an hour, just, oh, it is shifting buttery smooth, dude. It's shifting so good, and that fluid was so dark. Yes. Still needs tire balancing, but we'll do that when we slap on some fresh tires. I got some tires coming. Let's run through the manual gears. Yeah, let's go. I think next we gotta get started on this convertible top. Gotta fix this wind noise. This is the most daunting repair that I have left still. After that, we're gonna do some interior fixes. My boy Rob from Rob's Weekend Garage sent me an M3 center console, really nice leather piece. He also sent me a headlight switch so we can fix that battery draw issue from the fog lights being stuck on. And he also sent me a rear ashtray compartment. So we're gonna knock that out. Mr. Andy Crozier sent us some window switches so we can get this right rear window switch fixed. Big thank you to Mr. John Lamson from the Discord for sending over that ultrasonic parts cleaner. Big shout out to Gerardo for giving me the car. I mean, dude, gave me a whole car. I mean, this series wouldn't be possible without you guys. And sponsors like FCP Euro that are just donating so much money and so much parts to the cause. Like, it's really a group effort, and it's been amazing to see the community build and develop over time, and I just can't thank you guys enough. It's all thanks to you. Yes, you watching this video. It is literally all thanks to you, so I really appreciate you. Thank you very much. I'm super happy with this trans and how this thing is driving, guys. I didn't have any driveline vibrations on the road. I think this thing is still perfectly balanced, but you really gotta pay close attention and paint mark the previous position that the drive shaft was previously balanced in, so you can put it back together in the same position it came out. That's the most important factor, but I would have felt it on the highway under heavy acceleration, and I didn't. So I think we're good. Let's go get some poke. Guys, this car is coming along so nice. It is driving so good. Big G, Gerardo, if you're watching this, brother, I hope I'm making you proud with this restoration series, man, because I'm really trying. Really trying to do you justice and do this car right. I think we're doing it. Also, shout out to Larry from this week's live for all your generous donations while we were doing that live stream. Poke's on you. Poke's on you. Poke truck's there. Let's go. Let's get some poke. Oh, that was the last poke bowl of the day, baby. Let's go. We got some kimchi shrimp, some California Dreamin' poke, kimchi cucumber, seaweed salad, rice, furikake. Thanks, Larry. Well, guys, I am going to shove my face full of food as soon as I get home. So, as far as future content to look out for, convertible top diagnosis, general module diagnosis, so we can get the windows and the mirrors working properly. We're gonna put the original radio back in it, just like Gerardo requested. We're gonna do interior repairs, thanks to Rob's Weekend Garage, center console, rear cup holder. We're gonna put a new shifter boot on this thing, new window switch, bunch of little things like that. Then we're gonna slap some tires on it, and we're gonna do some exterior body work. So I gotta start ordering some front and rear bumpers for that type of stuff. Other content, I'm doing wheel bearings on my pastor's Toyota Highlander this week. I also have the cylinder heads torn off on my brother's 4.7 liter iForce Tundra V8. We're doing head gaskets, valve jobs, cylinder heads, all that good stuff. Oh, my E90 also overheated like I told you guys yesterday, so I'll be doing a water pump, thermostat, and expansion tank on that thing. So keep an eye out for that. I have an ASMR Duramax diesel truck service, oil service, and fuel filter video coming out, and I also have an F15 air compressor diagnosis video, the one that I did the rear airbags in. That video is coming out soon too, and I'm going to show you guys how I fixed that issue with a roll of tape and one single zip tie. If you're not subscribed to the channel, and if you haven't entered the giveaway form yet, be sure to subscribe to the channel and click on the giveaway form link. That will be in the description of the video down below. And as always, a huge thank you to FCP Euro for believing in me and for sponsoring this video. If you guys need any car parts, European, BMW, Mini Cooper, Audi, Volkswagen, Mercedes, Porsche, go to fcpeuro.com, browse their catalog. You will be blown away at the parts catalog and the prices that they have. Also, check out my Instagram page. Guys, we're almost at 300,000 followers over there, and I'm always trying to post short form content, stuff that you don't see on YouTube. I don't just copy and paste little snippets of the YouTube videos. They are 100% complete, unique videos that I try to showcase different repairs and little tidbits of information. You can find me on Instagram, and you can find me on TikTok. I hope you enjoyed, or I hope you learned something new. I'm gonna go smash my face with some poke, and as always, folks, I'll see you on my next day off. Love you guys. Come on, Sage. You're free. Let's go. Oh, it's a little tight for you. Come on. Got it? Oh, I'll help you. Oh, there we go. I'll let you out on the other side next time.